Hi, my name is Stephen Malachowski, and I want to thank you for watching this preview of my cycle trip across Britain. I've always been fascinated with Britain, its long history, its people, the unique British humor, so many things about it. And really, what better way to see a place than to cycle through it? This preview only describes days 1 through 3 of my trip. I put the preview together because I'm working with a few organizations who might want me to present to their staff, to their customers, or to others. With this presentation, you can see my style of presenting, and so you can decide whether or not you want to have me present to your group. I'll also give a brief introduction of myself. I'm originally from Minnesota, literally from Lake Wobegon, and I lived in London for a while. While I was there, I just loved cycling in London, in the UK, and the EU. My day job is at universities, sometimes as a professor, sometimes as a staff member. I'll now start the actual presentation. So it's about cycling across Britain. Britain is the larger island you see here. I was able to cycle in Britain because I lived in London from 2008 to 2015. The actual cycle trip was in 2011. During the trip, I hope not to stay in any hotels or B&Bs. I wanted to either camp or stay in youth hostels. I also hope to finish. This was my first cycle tour, my first long one. I really wasn't sure if I'd make it, and want to finish in 3 weeks. Here's some key locations in Britain. So down here you see England. Up on top is Scotland. On the left is Wales. And you can see London pointed out here. Land's End is where the trip started. That's in the far southwest of the country. And John O'Groats is in the northeast of the country, on the north tip of Scotland. All right, so day 1 of the trip. You can see an icon in the lower left corner of Britain, which represents my location at Land's End. So I started at Land's End and finished in a town called St. Just in Roseland. I went 57.5 miles and averaged a speed of 8.6 miles an hour. Yes, I'm slow. But I'm kind of proud of being slow. It gives me time to take pictures and write my cycling blog, meet people, have treats. I like being slow. I like enjoying the trip. At Land's End. But the first thing you'll probably notice is my bike. For a variety of reasons, life in London is easier using a folding bike. At least it was for me. I paid a fortune for a small apartment, and it was on the top floor of an old house. Hauling a full-size bike up the steps to get to that apartment was a real hassle. And plus, in London, you can put a folding bike on the subway, on trains, other places, and you can cycle to a train station, get on the train, cycle off the station, and increase your distance. My folding bike was also a full touring bike. It had 24 gears, a dynamo on the front hub, and the seat post had a tire pump in it. So it was a proper touring bike, but it still looked a bit odd. So odd, in fact, people from multiple countries often would say, "You're touring on that bike." Well, I like to think I had the last laugh because the name of my cycling blog is called touringonthatbike.com. The landscape at Land's End had a beautiful ruggedness about it. I really enjoyed it. Here's a sign-in book. My signature's at the bottom. We're called end-to-enders, and quite a few people took this trip, so I really enjoyed seeing cyclists coming and going. So I'm underway, and all of a sudden I'd see something like a castle on an island off in the seashore. It was just wonderful. On the first day, I stopped for lunch at this little place for a sandwich. It just felt so cozy. It was great. Then it was off to the road again. The British countryside really does capture your attention. In addition to these rolling hills, you can see some solar panels down there, so it's kind of a mixture of time and technologies, but great sights. Sometimes the roads didn't have the best view. Hedges are very common in Britain, and this is what it was often like. This is what it was like, with gorgeous views. This picture shows a lot about the landscape of Britain. First off, you see the hedges again, you see the views, you see that strange structure in the distance. you see a woman walking up the hill and she's struggling to walk. Hills like that were hard to push a bike up, which I did often. So even pedestrians had a tough time getting up the hills. So on the first day, I come across this little stopping place, and there was a river in the background, and a lot of cars were stopped, and I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. Well, the answer is on the left side of the screen, which I'll show you more closely next. This was a stop for the King Harry Ferry, or the King Harry Floating Bridge. And you can see the prices listed down the middle. So for instance, on the very bottom, if I was a truck or a lorry, as the Brits call it, it'd be £7 for a single, or £12 for a return. Going higher up, almost to the top, a motorcycle is £2 for a single, or £3 for a return. For a bike, for myself, it was 50 cents, or 50 pence, as the Brits would say. And here is the King Harry Ferry coming in, and even better, I'll show you a video clip of it in a moment. It was a wonderful little trip, and this is the very first day of my cycle tour. I was just wonderfully surprised. So there's the King Harry Ferry. I'll now go on to day 2, and you'll see in the lower left corner of the map, the icon has changed to a darker color to see my current location on day 2. I started in a town called St. Just in Roseland. I finished in a town called Gallant, where I camped. And my distance was 27.4 miles. My average speed, again, was slow, 8.2 miles. My miles are really low on this day because of breakdowns with my bike, GPS, rain, and seeing a cozy youth hostel early. Here's the campground where I started in that morning. And this is a bit of the countryside from day 2. A clip from my helmet cam. And if you listen carefully during the video, you might just learn what kind of airplanes I like the most.
That's a biplane. There's a biplane coming toward me. There's 2 biplanes coming toward me. Look at that, biplane.
I like biplanes, if you didn't notice.
Very cool. Boy, that's something.
Biplanes go, you'll notice how challenging it was physically. If you listen carefully once again, you might hear me huffing and puffing.
Oh, bollocks!
It was hard. This is where the slow miles per hour comes from, folks, but hey, I was having a great time.
Well, the first stop for the day, first push for the day.
I don't mind pushing.
A lot of hills.
Go along for a while and stop by somewhere else for a bite to eat, get to know some people. Always enjoyed the people. And now I'm on day 3. As you can see in the lower left corner of the map, the icon has moved forward a bit. So I started out in a town called Gallant, and I finished in a town called Doesland. I cycled 44.9 miles that day, and my average speed was 7.3. So I was actually slowing down. But I was absolutely amazed at how hilly this part of the trip was. This part is in a county called Cornwall. Cornwall has less flat space than any desk you've sat at, I swear. It just has no flat space, so it's always going up and down. You might think that the northern part of the trip in Scotland, with all the mountains, would have been harder. No, the toughest part was right here in southwest England. But it was pretty. All of a sudden, I'd be seeing little towns like this. Just a lovely scene. Back on the road, the view sometimes became limited again. The hedges are amazing. And then something unusual would show up. Check out this trough. I mean, that thing had to be carved out of a big piece of stone. The history of it is really intriguing. The sight of it was wonderful. The view became so limited here, it was like cycling down a big hose. But still a good time. Another nice view from a little town. The bakeries are always good. So here you have English pasties in a variety of flavors and types. Great place to stop for lunch. Cycling along in the farm fields of Britain, and you see something like this. I don't know if it's an aqueduct or if it's a train line or what, but it seems to me that the British probably took the ideas from the Romans a couple thousand years ago when they built something like this. It's just stunning to see and how history has hung around, because I really do suspect that the British kept the ideas from the Romans a long time ago. This is one of my campsites. I've always wanted to wild camp, never did until I got to this spot, and so this is where I made camp one night. And that's the view from outside my tent flap. It was a wonderful sunset and a great way to end day 3. Next would be day 4, but this preview only includes the first 3 days. I'll briefly go through the facts of day 4. So I started in Dozeland, finished in Blackburrow, went about 58 miles, and my average speed picked up a little bit. If for when you see the actual pictures, I call this a day of the critters. I saw some wonderful wildlife and farm animals on this day. Well, it's already time for me to conclude this preview of my entire presentation. Thanks for watching it. I really enjoyed sharing some moments with you. I also enjoyed giving the entire presentation. It's just great talking about cycle camping, talking about Britain, its history, its people, the sights. It's all good stuff. I'm using these presentations to raise money for cancer research. Regrettably, I've had cancer for about 2 years, and in a few months, I'm going to cycle across the US and use that trip to raise money for cancer research. If you're interested in having me present to your group, I'm looking forward to talking with you. The presentation is really flexible. It can be 30 minutes, 60 minutes, or anything else you might have in mind. If you want to contact me, my email address is on screen. Thanks again.